It's now time for what everyone has been waiting on. Let's put everyone in their respective groups based off of their paternal SNPs. These are the only three major SNPs. There are no other major SNPs that define the three groups. There is one major SNP that ties everyone together, but it's a lot of deception behind that SNP, and we're not going to touch on that topic right now. That is a video for a later discussion because they exclude two groups from this SNP, and I wonder why. I actually know why, but we'll touch on it on another time. But let's continue and let's show you where you belong. Just because this says where you belong, it does not seal your fate in anything. Where you stand is based off of repentance and how you live your life. Just remember that. Just because you're of this group and that group, it doesn't confirm your endpoint destination. Mainstream science utilizes the genetic stability of haplogroups A, B, and C to anchor the out of Africa hypothesis. They claim these groups are hundreds of thousands of years old because they lack the rapid sub-branching seen in the other lines. But this is the stability myth. In a forensic audit, we recognize that all three master seals, the Basal Foundation, the YAP Seal, and the M89 plus expansion, possesses the same mutational velocity. They are simultaneous seals assigned at the same time as primary source codes of the post-flood world. Let's do a quick forensic reality insertion, equal velocity but different roles. The velocity glitch. Scientists confuse population booms with biological time. They assume that because the M89 plus group has more subclass, which just mean branches, it is younger or more dynamic. In reality, the M89 plus signature is just as stable as the basal A or B signatures. Simultaneous protocols. All three houses started at the same moment. The House of Ham, groups A, B, and Basal C, F, G, H, K, represents the Basal Seal. These original builders maintained the foundational stability of the Shinar hub, while the other houses were assigned to expanding and scattering. A quick glance at the identity erasure. By labeling the Hamitic Foundation as archaic or ancient, science effectively ages the owners out of their own property, claiming the builders of Egypt and Sumer were primitive precursors rather than high intelligence contemporaries. Now, some major kingdoms and dynasties of Hamites. The Mizraim, Nile, Old Kingdom Egypt, the architects of the Giza Plateau and Thinite period. The basal nature of their DNA reflects their role as the keepers of the original pre-flood architectural knowledge. Now let's move on to the Kushite Sumer, the Nimrod dynasty, the establishment of Babel, Erech, and Akkad. Nimrod, a Kushite, was the world's first enlarged ruler, building the urban framework of the world using basal groups F and G signatures. Also, we have the Indus Valley civilization, Meluha, the urban mastery of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, linked to haplogroups Basal, H, and K. These groups show incredible city planning consistency, a hallmark of Hamitic foundational stability. Lastly, we will look at the Canaanite maritime empire, the foundational coastal cities of the Levant, Sidon, Tyre, engineered by the basal groups G and H, lineages long before the air-quoted Middle Eastern onomastic displacement. Ancient site findings, Ganj Dareh, Zagros Mountains, presence of basal haplogroup G, M89-negative, in the earliest agricultural layers. This identifies the Hamitic foundation in a fertile crescent before the M89 expansion arrived. Mentufuin, Levantine sites, ancient DNA shows a high frequency of basal haplogroup E pre-YAP diversification. There's some trickery here. And basal G, proving the original Hamitic occupation of Canaan. Sourced information, Lazardus et al. 2016, Nature identifies the basal Eurasian foundation of the Near East. Now, there was some trickery here. We've seen that it said basal haplogroup E, pre-YAP diversification. Let's address this. Forensic fact. The YAP Seal is a foundational protocol, not a recent edit. There are no YAP negative members of the D or E houses in the living record. The claim of a pre-YAP era is a theoretical redaction used to muffle the simultaneous establishment of the three master mutations post-flood. The Out of Africa model is based on these ghost lineages. They do not actually exist in the living record. To clarify, there's no such thing of basal E. Okay, moving on from that slight glimpse of deception. Now we move on to the next site. Luxor Abydos, Upper Egypt, consistently yields haplogroups A and B signatures in the earliest dynastic strata. Strata is the level of soil of where they find ancient remains, stuff that's buried. The deeper the strata, the older the findings. Sourced information, Hassan et al., 2008, American Journal of Physical Anthropology. Haplogroups A-M13 and B-M60 are present at high frequencies in the Nilo-Saharan groups, Nilots. Haplogroups A was found in 16.9% of the total samples, with its highest frequency in the Nubia at 46.4%. The presence of these basal lineages, A and B, in the region is consistent with an ancient presence in the Nile Valley, while E-M2, also known as E1B1A, and E-M78, also known as E1B1B, represent a later diversification. All right, our forensic reality for Chapter 5. This study identifies haplogroups A and B as the foundational basal seeds of the Nile. It proves that the original inhabitants of the land of Ham carried these stable M89 negative signatures that predate any latter northern expansions. Let's conclude our Chapter 5 with its forensic summary. The audit of the House of Ham is conclusive. We have dismantled the stability myth by proving that the basal foundation of groups A, B, and basal groups C, F, G, H, and K possesses the same mutational velocity as every other house in the ledger. They are not archaic precursors from an evolutionary past. They are the high intelligence architects of the post-flood world. By tracing the M89 negative and YAP negative signatures through the dynasties of Mizraim and the urban planning of Nimrod, we have exposed how deep time was used as a forensic weapon to age the builders out of their own history. The House of Ham did not evolve into others. It provided the stable infrastructure and the global tent that the other houses would later occupy. The foundation was set, and the ledger shows it was built with Hamitic precision.